Hi all, today I'd like to go over the most frequently asked questions that I receive through emails and Instagram DMs. So let's get started. What are your goals, Azad? There is never an end goal, I feel, and there's never satisfaction in the sense that there's always going to be another goal. For me, some of the things that I have in my mind, which I've also written down as kind of life goals as well, is to be around about 82 kilos, be quite shredded at that weight, but also to be very strong at that weight. So I'd love to bench press 160 kilos paused. I'd love to deadlift 260 kilos. I'd love to squat 220 kilos, also with big clean and jerk and snatches as well. So really for me, it's just about being at a weight that I'm happy with in terms of my how I feel and how I perform as well. But mainly I'd like to be very strong at whatever look I tend to have. I don't really separate muscle from strength, and I don't want to just look strong and lean. I want to actually be strong as well. So that would be my life goal, to be quite slim build, but more muscular than I am currently, with more strength and a better performance really. Something else I really often get asked is, how the hell do you eat 4,000 calories a day? I think people are quite surprised with how I managed to get that many calories on a vegan diet, because maybe they've tried it. Maybe you've tried going vegetarian and going vegan and you felt weak, or you struggled to get enough calories in, or I think it's mainly because of your food choices. Grains and nuts are possibly the most calorically dense foods out there, and they both fit into a vegan person's lifestyle quite a lot actually. So I tend to eat quite a lot of nuts. I have smoothies at least once a day, so that's just a nice and convenient way to get in 1,000 calories. And really, when you break things down, each of my meals are always roughly 1,000 calories each. That means I'm only eating about 4 times a day, which is very easily sustainable as well, I feel. In the past, I've had up to 7, 8 meals. I've done the whole bodybuilding type thing, and really those meals are just a lot smaller. So right now my meals, I'm quite easily consuming 4 to 5 meals a day, which are roughly 800 to 1,200 calories as well, depending on what it is and how much I'm enjoying it, I guess. So smoothies are a really convenient way to get in a ton of calories if you're looking to build some muscle and strength. You can throw in a load of peanut butter, you can throw in a load of oats, bran flakes and these sorts of things just to boost the caloric content. But I think the main takeaway thing from this is that if you are trying to gain mass and you're really struggling with food, then I probably would look for liquid calories. That's probably point 1. But 2, just look for ways you can add in little boosts really, which I like to kind of call them. Little ways, like for example, adding a piece of fruit like a banana to each meal, or adding a glass of milk, whether that's soya or dairy based, to each meal. These are just kind of like shortcut ways where your meal volume doesn't increase so much, but you're just adding one little thing, maybe a protein bar here or there, a protein shake somewhere else, a glass of milk somewhere else, a banana somewhere else. And by the end of the day, if you're having 4 to 5 meals, you'll find that you've added at least 500 calories to the total of your day. So really 4,000 calories isn't that much. There are athletes, athletes' diaries and YouTube videos, etc., where you can find people eating up to 10,000 quite easily. So I think it's just one of those things where as you increase muscle mass, your metabolism increases that much further, and mine was always high anyway. So my appetite just increased that much. And then the training style that I have, which is very strength and volume based, which means I'm doing a lot of heavy weight a lot of the time and very frequently also. It just means I have a very high appetite and metabolism. So it really isn't that hard for me, and I feel I need to eat more. Next question goes something like, so I want to lose weight, what should I do? The first thing I think you need to consider when you are looking to lose body fat as opposed to weight, because that's what actually most people want, is firstly you need to acknowledge the fact that you got there either through inactivity or eating too much. That's really important, because then you need to start to put 2 and 2 together and start to see if you are overeating. Okay, you need to find out how much are you overeating. So it's probably worth getting onto an app like MyFitnessPal and tracking what you're actually eating throughout the day and getting somebody to have a look at that. If it's out of your understanding, that is. The second thing you can do is simply log into an online calculator, something called a TDEE calculator. And what you can find out from there is you can establish how many calories you actually need per day based on your lifestyle. And then if you're massively exceeding that based on your MyFitnessPal tracking, then you can obviously see, okay, I'm not active, I'm not going to the gym, I'm not really playing football when I said I would with my friends, and I'm actually overeating by 1,000 calories a day, which just means over time you're just going to gain weight. And sometimes it happens so slowly, 5-6 years after being married. Like for example, people just notice, okay, I'm 10 kilos overweight and I don't know where it came from. So sometimes it does happen gradually, sometimes it does happen even rapidly. But I think it's just important to acknowledge them things first, because then that triggers your, that can motivate you for change then. So once you've established the fact that you're probably eating too much and you've established how many calories you actually need, it's worth getting an activity in place. So definitely you have to start off with drinking more water for a starter. But in terms of activity, you definitely need to be getting 10,000 steps a day. So it's worth getting an app on your phone, like a pedometer app, or if you've got an iPhone or a latest Samsung, you've probably got a health app on your phone anyway. Tracking how many steps you're doing and making sure you're getting 10,000 is just a base level of activity that we should be doing anyway. On top of that, you want to be getting into the gym 3 times a week and probably focusing on resistance or weights training, just because that's great for long-term fat loss solution. And if you're doing all of these things and you're still not getting great results, it's probably worth just getting somebody's advice, somebody like a personal trainer. Get their advice to see what else they can give to you to help you further. Some people go to very, very extreme measures when trying to lose body fat, because they want it done kind of, almost instantaneously, which is what we're used to these days as a society. What you need to remember is it might have taken you 6 months to get where you are, or it might have taken you 6 years even, or even longer periods for you to actually slowly, gradually gain fat to a point where you're now unhappy. Things aren't going to change in a matter of weeks. Things take time. You have to be patient with this. And the reason you have to be patient is going on extreme crash diets and restrictive diets are terrible for hormones, and it's going to leave you a bit of a mess without a lot of energy to actually perform at work or perform in the gym. So it's really important to do it sensibly, get an expertise opinion in terms of what to do in the gym, how to eat, and make sure you are actually eating enough to fuel your endeavors. So the next question is the opposite really. So it's, I can't gain any weight, do I need a weight gainer? The first thing that people who want to build up some muscle and strength or size ask about is weight gainers. And this is quite funny to me, because this is how I used to be about 8 years ago as well myself. I was always interested in weight gainers, without actually realizing that the best weight gainer out there is just simple food. I mentioned at the start of this video, if you're really struggling to get in food and actually chew, and it can become quite tiresome and your jaw starts to hurt or whatever, it's really easy just to get liquid calories in. So getting some milk, getting some protein powder, getting some peanut butter or almonds, mixing it all together in a NutriBullet or a blender, and just basically drinking it. It takes a minute to prepare, and it's a very, very easy way to get in 1,000 calories. Weight gainers, I'm also going to talk about weight gainers because it's something I'm asked about so much. Weight gainers tend to be just essentially glorified protein powders. So they'll contain whey protein, for example, but the bad thing about these weight gainers is that they contain carbohydrates called maltodextrin, which are basically high GI. They're not the best source of carbohydrates by all means. So it's probably just much better just to create your own weight gainers at home, which is essentially the liquid calories and the smoothies that I'm talking about. So using something like oats, bran flakes, Weetabix is going to be a lot better than something like pure sugar, which is essentially maltodextrin. Definitely make your own smoothies, make your own weight gainers. That's if you can't eat. However, I'd say if your goal really is to gain mass, you have to become accustomed to feeling uncomfortable eating so much and shoveling food down. That's just the way it is, unfortunately, especially if you're a hard gainer like me with 7-8 inch wrists. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. The next question, which I quite often get asked, especially on Instagram actually, because it's a photo sharing platform and I'm always posting pictures of my physique when I'm pumped, etc., is why don't you compete in physique or bodybuilding? The simple truth there is, when I first started, maybe the first 2 or 3 years, my goal was actually to get into bodybuilding. But I'd also say I was very naive at that time. No link between the two, the aspiration and my descriptive word there. Naive in the sense that I didn't actually realize what bodybuilding was and what you have to do to get onto a bodybuilding stage in terms of the drug use, etc. I also very quickly understood that it was quite a genetic variation thing as well. You have to have quite a different set of genetics to be able to get onto an Olympia stage or even a local level bodybuilding show. Genetics are definitely something that's not talked about a lot. And for example, I've been training for 8 years. You could get somebody else who's been training for 8 years who may now weigh 100 kilos and be fairly lean, whereas I'm roughly 77 kilos right now. So everybody grows, everybody responds to training in different ways. And I think I was quite naive in the sense that my goal in my head, my only goal when I first started training was I wanted to weigh 100 kilos when I was 21 years old. And that just never ever came about to be. The most I've ever weighed is about 84 kilos, where my body fat was actually quite high, and I think I've posted that picture out on social media too. To answer the question in a simple way, I just don't find it appealing in any sort of way. I really am more interested in strength and performance. So I have done strongman competitions in the past, and I've done powerlifting on an online platform, which was I believe it was a My Protein competition. I haven't been to any powerlifting meets yet, however, that's something I do want to do. I definitely want to get into powerlifting, especially drug-free powerlifting. But really walking around a stage and posing in some really skinny posing trunks it's just not appealing to me. You know, I'm one of those guys that would just leave it at Instagram and that's it. As a side note, why isn't it appealing to me? One of the reasons, I think I've just mentioned genetics. It's very much genetics. So when you see a lineup on stage of 8 to 12 people posing, it's essentially a battle of genetics and the drugs that each person's taken. So if you've got better genetics than person B and you're taking better drugs than person B, you're going to be the winner in the judges' eyes, unfortunately. And that's quite it's essentially a beauty contest, and that's not really something that appeals to me. The next question is, what are those shoes you wear? So a lot of people have seen my videos and they've seen those Olympic lifting shoes. Well, those are, they're called Reebok CrossFit Plus 2.0s, and essentially they're weightlifting shoes. But the beauty about these weightlifting shoes is that normal weightlifting shoes are quite stiff in nature. The reason they're quite stiff is because you need a solid platform. Now, the reason you might choose to wear weightlifting shoes as opposed to normal trainers is because weightlifting shoes have an elevated heel. So you might have seen sometimes people squatting with a plank of wood under their feet. There's that famous Arnold picture when he's training with his training partner, where they've got a plank of wood underneath their heels. The reason for that is it keeps your shin angle much more upright, and the more upright your shin angle is, the more upright your torso is from a side view. So it would be the difference between this in a squat versus this in a squat. Not that exaggerated, but you get the point. That's the benefit that a weightlifting shoe has. So it's flat at the front, completely flat at the front. It's almost like being bare feet, and it's elevated by about half an inch or so on the rear, on the heels. So they're called Reebok CrossFit Plus 2.0s, and the reason I opted for the CrossFit ones as opposed to normal lifting shoes is because they're stiff, as stiff as a weightlifting shoe, but they're also mobile. So I can actually run in them, I can jump in them, you know, whether it's box jumps, etc. I can do all of these things in those. However, I wouldn't be able to with normal Olympic lifting shoes. So the reason I went for the hybrid really is just because I wanted the convenience of not changing my trainers during my training session, and I really like the look of them as well in black and orange. The next question is, what is the best routine for muscle building? We know from all the recent research that training frequency is very important. And the reason for that is muscle protein synthesis. So the more frequently we can train a muscle, essentially the better, in simple layman's terms. Having said that, training volume is definitely the only thing that dictates muscle mass. So as long as your training volume is going up, your muscle mass will go up. Now, let's take a simple example here. A bro split where you would do chest on a Monday, which is International Chest Day, and not do it again until the following Monday, is kind of what most people do. Gone are those days of the bro split. The recent studies and the recent research that is out there actually shows if you, instead of doing 15 sets of chest on a Monday, If you do 5 sets of chest on a Monday, 5 sets of chest on Wednesday, and a further 5 sets on Friday, the long-term accumulation of gains from that is essentially way more than the typical bro split. So the fact that you split up the workload throughout the week and you split up the volume, even keeping the volume the same, that's the key thing there. So the volume is the same. You both examples I just gave completed 15 sets per week. However, by splitting it up, you get more muscle growth, simple. So that's really important. Now, routines that can accommodate that and actually accommodate you doing chest 3 times per week would be something like full body workouts 3 times per week. So if you do your full body on a Monday, full body Wednesday, and full body on a Friday, something along those lines is probably more ideal. If you can't do full body sessions, or you want to be in the gym for more than 3 days, for example, then upper lower splits work really well as well. So you can do upper body on a Monday, lower body on a Tuesday, take Wednesday as a rest, and then repeat on Thursday and Friday. That works really well also. Essentially, you just want to make sure you're training each muscle at least twice per week, ideally 3 times per week, with enough volume to make sure you're actually progressing. However, it's also worth mentioning that there's not really an ideal routine. In terms of exercise selection, you need to pick what you enjoy. You need to pick what you're weak at, so what you need to build up in terms of strength. But I could argue, if you've seen my video, which is basically the only 5 exercises you need, in which I actually tell you 9 exercises that you need. So I will put that up here for you so you can click and check that out if you haven't already. If you were to follow those 9 exercises, so that was a 3-day per week routine. If you were to follow only those 9 exercises for a period of 10 years, but just focus on progressively overloading, meaning if you've bench pressed 5x5, 60 kilos this week, next week you come in and you try 62.5. If you get 5x5, you move up the next week to 65 kilos and keep progressing in this fashion. You will not only get stronger, but you will gain the most amount of muscle that you can on your frame, really. And that's where genetics comes into it. But the key point there is, so long as you're progressively overloading over time, you will definitely gain muscle mass. So it's not really about a best routine, or is this routine better than that routine. It's really just about pick what works, the basics work, the compounds work, progressively overload and get stronger in each of those lifts and see what happens. And I really recommend you check out that video with the 9 exercises, because I do guarantee if you just did those 9 exercises for a period of 10 years, you'd get an absolutely amazing physique. The final question here in the most frequently asked questions is basically, can you help? I'm not getting the results I want in the gym. So I get asked that question in many, many different ways. The simple thing I can suggest is that from my experience looking in the gym and looking at how people train, I'd say most people aren't actually doing what's optimal for their goal. And that's not through any fault of their own, really. Most people in the gym are kind of aspiring to be like somebody else in the gym and probably copying what they're doing. So if I see somebody getting he's got huge arms and huge shoulders, who's doing shoulder presses on a Smith machine, more likely than not, I'll probably try a Smith machine shoulder press at some stage. Just because we get speaking to people in the gym and we find out how they're training, or maybe we find out if they're free and you actually decide to train with them and become training partners. And unless one of you is a personal trainer, or one of you actually know about exercise science or nutrition science, you're probably just going to share ideas about what each of you know with regards to nutrition and training style. So if one of you is taking a protein shake by a specific brand, the other one probably is more likely to get onto that also, because we do share ideas in that sense. So if you're not getting the results you desire, it's probably worth just starting off by reading, simply Googling what your goal actually is. The beauty of the information age is that we're not alone. Whatever our goals, whatever our problems, whatever our ambitions, etc., there's always people out there who have done that already. So if I'm looking to get to 82 kilos, meaning I need to put on a stone of body weight, and I want to do so by increasing my clean and jerk, increasing my snatch, increasing my bench, squat, deadlift, as well as the amount of pull-ups I can do, I can almost guarantee if I went on to Google and searched gaining a stone in a year and gaining this much X amount on bench press, I would be able to find results and essentially just copy what somebody else has done. So if somebody else basically increased their calories every month, I could do exactly the same thing for myself and manage to mimic their results really. So it's really important just to use the information you have available. If you don't have any information available, it's definitely worth just investing in some personal training. Find somebody at your gym, speak to them, or just get some advice from, there's plenty of free information out there also, if that's not what you want to do. You can get articles, you can get videos on YouTube. In this day and age, we have so much information out there. It's just a shame that people feel that they're not getting the results they desire. But the second point here that needs to be made is that a lot of people don't have the patience that it actually takes to get to some of the results. So if I'm bench pressing 120 kilos paused right now, and I wasn't really in the know, and I said, you know what, in a year's time I want to hit 180 kilos. Whereas most people around the world who are in the strength world, maybe strength coaches and they're bench press champions even, they'll say, okay, this guy doesn't actually know, because unless he's taking a lot of drugs, he won't be able to gain 60 kilos on his bench press within a year, when he's only doing 120 at the moment. So sometimes it's just about having your goals in check and knowing what's actually achievable and what isn't achievable, but then also having the patience to say, you know what, if it takes me an extra year, it takes me an extra year, but I'm going to get there because that was my goal. So be patient, research, use Google. If that doesn't work, then definitely get someone's expertise, because that's an investment which is definitely worth it. So that was it for today's FAQ video. I will be posting now a Q&A video every month as opposed to every week as before, because it's quite hard to keep up with. So stay tuned on my Facebook page or Instagram page, where you can post your questions, and definitely leave some questions in the comments below if you'd like me to answer anything in the next Q&A video. Take care for now.